I've just been asked to come in and just say a few words about the history of the joy of living. And I can remember one day, oh, many years ago, it must have been 2007 or 8. I can't remember. Um, I had asked Mingyur Rinpoche to come to the United States, and uh, we were doing our sort of first tour around. And at the time, we were in Boulder, Colorado. And I can remember very, very clearly. I was driving him to a venue and we stopped at a stop sign. I can go back to that stop sign today. And for some reason, he just started talking about what he wanted to do or what his imagination was for the West. And it was very clear, just sitting there for a couple of minutes, that he was very, very interested in sharing with the world the kind of formal, profound training that he received in its fullness, and that he wanted to do it on the basis of it being a community. He really was, it was very clear that what he wanted to do. And so consequently, this is why we call it the Tergar meditation community, because that was his sort of initial aspiration. It was interesting because his father, who was my teacher, was a kind of a hermitage dwelling yogin. He lived up in the hills above Kathmandu in a hermitage and never really talked about community. And so there we are. And we said, okay, well, let's do that. And then um, about some time later, it might have been a year later, he had gotten invited to go to Rio. And I remember I got a call one morning, and I hated getting calls because early in the morning, because it was usually Mingyur Rinpoche, and it was usually at some odd hour of the night or day. And he was usually going to ask me a question that I could never remember the answer to. So the whole thing was frustrating. But he got on the phone and he said, "Guess what?" And I said, "What?" He said, "I just gave meditation instruction to 35 million people." And I went, "What are you talking about?" They had put him on the most popular talk show in Brazil and asked him to teach meditation. And apparently there were 35 million people watching. And I remember thinking to myself, oh boy, this is going to be a ride. I knew it was going to be a little bit different. So in the beginning, myself and Mioshin and Edwin and Cortland, we were the sort of the founding instructors. We've taken on one since Antonia. And we traveled around with a little packet of CDs. We had recorded the content uh, when we were together a little while later in India. And I spent a lot of time just going around. You remember what CDs are? So it was funky, but it was great. It was really wonderful. And um, it was very clear to me right off the bat that Mingyur Rinpoche had a different approach. Of course, many people teach meditation and they teach it beautifully, and there are many completely authentic traditions of meditation, and there are many great teachers. But there's something about Mingyur Rinpoche that makes him an incredibly gifted trainer. He's a fabulous teacher, but he's really dedicated to sharing what he learned from his teachers in this experiential style. It's a particular style where the teachers says something, then asks you to, do this or that meditation practice and checks your understanding. It's a very methodical way to go through the path. And this is Mingyur Rinpoche's real gift. And, you know, what you will learn in the joy of living is really, even though Mingyur Rinpoche talks, the joy of living is ostensibly a secular based sort of approach to meditation. He is setting you up to it's the beginning of the entirety of the Buddha, the Tibetan Buddhist meditation training altogether. In fact, I was so amazed when I first began to, we first used his first teachings. And I said to him, I said, Rinpoche, if I had had these teachings, um, it was some 20 years earlier, I would not have had to go to Nepal and live in Nepal for 12 years because there he is sort of sending them around the world. And so it was really extraordinary. I knew right off the bat that there was something different going on. And what he offers in the joy of living is the beginning, it is the sort of, how can I say that, the drumbeat of the entire tradition that we start in the joy of living level one, talking about awareness, and then in level two, talking about compassion, and in level three, talking about wisdom. And for however long any of you are on, uh, I can speak for the Buddhist meditation path, um, you will always be playing these notes: awareness, compassion, and wisdom, awareness, compassion, and wisdom. And as however far you go along, you will be following the golden thread of awareness that Mingyur Rinpoche is going to introduce you to in the joy of living. So one of the things he often says is that this is a lifetime path, and he says that he practices it himself, and it's completely true. This is the whole banana, as they say in Tibetan. In fact, yeah, like I said, this is the sort of the entirety of the Tibetan tradition, and um, it's going to be wonderful. I think you're going to love it.